Hello, everyone. I'm Mehrnaz Campbell, founder of Chemia and author of The Omni Advantage. Welcome to our LinkedIn live session today. We took a couple of months of break, and it's lovely to be back, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm dialing in from Knoxville in Tennessee, one of southern states in the US, and it's a beautiful blue skies, and it's a sunny day. It's about 18 degrees. So I'm curious to know about you. Where are you tuning in from, and what's the weather's like where you are dialing in from? So please take a few seconds, drop in a quick note in the chat to say hello, and just share where you are joining us today. At Chemia, our purpose is to unleash the human potential to create a healthier world by inspiring pharma to shift from being the message bearer to becoming trusted advisors for healthcare professionals. And over the last 3 years, we've tackled these challenges of transformation through this series. I want to spark connection, inspire change, and drive meaningful discussion that really improves the outcomes for healthcare professionals, but also for the patients. I'm really passionate about helping pharma to feel confident about using technology to improve the way we engage with healthcare professionals. And that's why I've been interviewing inspiring leaders to learn from them and tap into their experience and expertise and give them a platform so they can share that with you here. So today, I'm really thrilled because we're joined by Graham Addison, who leads global launch and marketing excellence at AstraZeneca, based in Global Hub in Barcelona. Hi, Graham. It's lovely to have you here.
Hi, Mehrnaz. I've been looking forward to this.
I know, it's so cool to have you here. But before I go into chatting to Graham and ask him lots of questions, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Graham in case you didn't know him. Graham brings more than 2 decades of experience in the pharmaceutical industry and is known for bringing strategic clarity, creative energy, and a real sense of inspiration to the teams that he leads. Since he joined AstraZeneca, he's helped shape the company's global marketing vision and roadmap and driving transformation and innovation through technologies like augmented and virtual reality, artificial intelligence. And what I think stands out about Graham's work is how he balances that commercial excellence with patient-centered mindset, always keeping the purpose of improving healthcare at the heart and center of what he does. He's also been recognized by both the Pharmaceutical Marketing Society and Marketing Week for his contribution to marketing excellence, which says a lot about the impact Graham has on our industry. So this is really cool to have you here, Graham. And I think, normally when I introduce our lovely speakers, I'll reflect back and talk about how we first met. And for you, it's so special because you and I have known each other for quite a long time, right?
Quite a long time indeed. I don't even like to think about it, to be honest. It's been that many years. But yeah, I think it was about 20 years ago, I think it was.
I know. And, it's actually quite lovely to kind of like reconnect again after so many years of going on our different paths of, working in the industry. Do you remember where we first met? Where was it? I know it was in Scotland, that's for sure. But do you recall?
I have a vague recollection. I do actually think it was in the Westerwood Hotel, close to Cumbernauld, and I think it was a team meeting. And I think at that point you were one of the sales managers, regional manager, or access manager, and I was just new. I just joined the industry, I think,
right,
all those years ago. So I was fresh out of the box.
Yeah, I remember vaguely like you because it's such a long time ago, and I think I was on like one of those phases of my career when I was like they were changing my job every 18 months to 2 years to give me exposure. I was working in the regional office as a regional marketeers for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and then I went to do like a spin of sales management and then sales leadership. So I don't know which one it was at the time when you and I first met, but I remember at some point I was a account manager for Lanarkshire, and that hotel you mentioned in Cumbernauld was our like stomping ground to group as a team and strategize about what we're going to do to improve, you know, our performance and connection in Lanarkshire. But yeah, it was so lovely to reflect back on our beginning of our relationship. But when I saw your name at Next Pharma Summit in Dubrovnik, I was really excited, and it was so nice to see you there. I saw you on stage presenting on, you know, the dilemmas of marketing and how you see this and the challenges of not connecting with the pain points of our HCPs. And I felt really proud actually to see how you've grown to such a skilled and innovative marketeer. And I felt like it was so lovely that I've known you for all this long time, but see you flourish in the way you have. So yeah, good on you. Really proud of you.
Thank you very much. Very kind. That was a great meeting as well, actually. Really enjoyed it, and it was really great to connect with you and many other people there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to miss Vienna because I won't be able to, unfortunately, travel there. But I've definitely got it in my diary for next year to go to Dubrovnik. But Graham, I've got loads of questions for you. But this is to our audience. This is not about me. This is about getting engagement with you. Otherwise, what's the point of having a live event? So with Graham's experience in commercial, and I can vouch for that because not all the marketeers have had experience of selling and working the commercial side of the business, but I can vouch for Graham. But with his expertise in commercial and marketing excellence is your chance to, you know, ask him questions. And I would really encourage you to pop your questions in the chat. Even if you don't have a question, if you hear Graham talks about something and it resonates with you, give him a thumbs up or comment on what he said. And more importantly, if you disagree with him, I'd love you to say something. You know, we love a challenge. I always think we learn more when we disagree with each other because it allows us to see things from diverse perspective. And, you know, I really love to hear from you and see what comments you have to say. I'm just looking at comments here. I've got Christina McCord join us. She says, it's great to see you, Graham. She's giving you greetings from homeland, blue skies in air and 12 degrees. Yay! Thanks, Christina, for joining us. I don't know where you know Christina. Was that through AZ? Or
Yeah. We also go back a long way.
Oh, okay.
Had the pleasure of working with Chris for many years as well. So.
Maybe, Christina, you can comment and give us some dirt on Graham so we can...
No. I'll pass on that one.
Christina might not, but let's see what happens. So to get everybody warmed up, I'm just going to kick off with a couple of questions, but I really want to have your questions here. And Elisa Fenoglio actually posted a comment on LinkedIn that I'll bring into the conversation. But let's start with your story, Graham. What first drew you into pharmaceutical marketing, and what has been the defining moment that shaped your journey, like so far, to get here?
It's difficult to pinpoint actually like one defining moment, but I can certainly tell you where my journey into pharma marketing started. As you said, I think I spent about 10 years in the field doing various different roles. You know, started as a representative, went into hospital setting, into the specialist, and then did various other roles. Ultimately, though, I was actually inspired by somebody. And I think this all comes down to people at the end of the day. You know, so I was inspired by somebody who was a brand manager at the time, and at that time I was working for Bristol Squibb, and I got the opportunity to go into the office, do some sort of shadowing, and marketing just really lit up for me. It ticked so many boxes. No day is the same, you know, and the opportunity that you have to have such a broad impact on patients. You know, you mentioned that at the beginning, so it really energized me, and ever since that moment, I was determined to get into marketing. So that was the kind of I guess a defining moment, and I guess when I did manage to make that step, I got into the office, did a training role to get visibility, then I got the associate brand manager role before before a brand manager, and I guess that would have been one of the defining moments, is like your first marketing job, to actually be able to get in there and to work on a brand. I remember being so excited about it. So it was such a great opportunity. So I think there are people through your journey that inspire you along the way, right? And you talk about the next event in Dubrovnik. I got a lot of inspiration from people there. And I think rather than defining moments, it's about what you learn along the way. That can be good and bad, right? So there's lots of things that we learn as we progress in our journey. I mean, to call out a few of the things that I can really put my finger on, the things I learned that are important. I'll start with the people that are around you, your team, but also sort of that kind of stakeholder management piece. We've talked about it before. I really found out how important the patient voice is and how critical that is to bring that into marketing. I mean, we all talk about how important insights are. And something, you talked about some of the things that I've done at the opening of the meeting. One thing that really excites me is actually taking risks. And I would much rather take a risk and try something and learn from it than not do it again. And I think so far so good. It's kind of served me well along the way, because I've actually been able to push myself, push the business, and push teams to try things differently or do things in a different way. And you know what? 80-90% of the time it works. And that 10% of the time it doesn't work, you learn and move on.
Yeah. So. That's a really interesting. You kind of touched on two really important things. You talked about people and the impact they have on, inspire us. And I love that. And I'm going to maybe ask you a question around the leadership on that, because when I'm thinking about it, when you were talking, I was thinking the people who inspired us and the people that kind of like look at them and think, this is how not I'm going to lead, like the opposite. So people have a big influence. I think that the thing you talked about, risk, I think that is so important, because I think often we don't do things because of the fear. But if you overcome our fear and say, I'm just going to take a risk and see it as a learning opportunity, you said 80% of the time you've been successful by taking the risk, but you go in with the intention of knowing it's going to work, that increases your likelihood of being successful. But if people hesitate and fearful and thinking they're going to fall, then they're going to fall. Whatever you think is going to happen is going to happen. And I think maybe that's the secret sauce to your success. You're not afraid of taking risks because I think some people taking risks thinking there's 50-50, either win or I fail. Maybe your attitude is different. You're thinking I either learn or I'll win. So you've got no fear going forward. And maybe that's quite key things that you just touched on. That is your secret sauce. So I'm losing my voice here. Let me drink a bit of water. But that's quite key, I think, Graham. Are you like that in other aspects of your life?
I like to say, I used to be a lot more, because and Chris, who was commenting this, you'll probably know this. Back up in Scotland, I also had a passion for snowboarding, and that's where that started. So I guess you could say, like in my personal life, I've always been more attracted to. I don't know if you'd call that a risky sport. I mean, I don't think it's risky. It depends how you do it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I ski because I've been skiing for a long time. I kind of like tried snowboarding, but I felt I had to go back to the beginning. But the secret thing about skiing is to have more control on your skis, you need to lean forward, which is counterintuitive, because most people think leaning forward, you're going to fall. But the more you lean forward, the more control you have. And I guess I don't know whether it's the same with snowboarding or not, but I think that with taking risk in business and, doing things that you've never done before, I find the more you lean forward, the more likely you are to make it happen. And maybe you're taking that perspective in marketing as well. What do you think?
I mean, drawing a parallel from that, it's about commitment. You've got to commit fully to things. So I would say that's also really important. Yeah.
And when you go down the slope doing snowboarding, you don't think I'm going to fall. You just think I'm going to have fun. So whatever your perception of what you're anticipating is positive as well. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that analogy, but I think that's key, actually. We could have maybe another conversation on it. But you talked about people. You've kind of like led teams across some of the biggest name in pharma. What experience have most influenced the way you lead and inspire creativity and drive change? Have there been people on that side that inspired you as well?
Yeah, there has actually, and if I can remember the quote exactly, but there was one particular leader that when I spent my time in the global head office in Cambridge, and I'll never forget, he pulled me aside and he said, Graham, he said, I like to set big hairy goals and move mountains through people with integrity. And that always stuck with me, and I remember saying that to him not too long ago. But it was about that clarity of vision, and so for me, I did try and model that behavior as I moved into whether that was leading teams or cross-functional teams, is to have that really clear strategic vision. I really find that helps solidify things, and I'll go as far in some cases as writing a mantra or a manifesto that can really align people behind and really drive with purpose. And for me personally, like with my immediate team, they're the most important thing to me. And it's about what I can do to empower them and support them. And I really hope that they feel that. I mean, I don't know, maybe we should have asked them to join and ask some questions. But, I hope they feel that. I feel that it's critically important to have that level of, sort of safety, psychological safety, and building that culture of trust, because you've got to have that. I mean, that's foundational elements. And the final thing I'll probably say on that is that in terms of moving, the creativity and inspiring people, one other person, and you heard me talk about him, who I've learned a lot from over the course of the past few years, would have been Andrew Wilkie. I mentioned him in Dubrovnik, and it was more around the basic principle of connecting with people on an emotional level. And I've really taken that into all aspects of the work that I do, within the business setting. Like, if you connect with people on an emotional level, that's where you get the traction. That's where you get the action, and it makes such a difference.
Brilliant. I think just to share with you, we had a bit of a technical issue just before we started. So Graham cannot see the comments. I'm just going to share with you. It seems as if it's a bit of like a do because Christina McCord just exactly said the same thing as you said. Christina says creating psychological safety with risk is important as it can increase risk takers. The environment is critical and backing of network teams, etc. So I don't know how closely you work with Christina, but I think her experience was that you creating that psychological safety. And I think that's key, because you want to unleash your people's potential. They need to feel safe to go, across boundaries and explore things. So good on you for creating that. And I think how people feel has a big impact in terms of how they perform and how they turn up for work. So Graham, I was just going to say, this term digital transformation is a phrase that we hear everywhere. And when you strip away the jargon, what does it actually really mean to you?
Digital transformation, it's a word that gets thrown around, or a couple of words that get thrown around quite a lot. I'm going to come back to what I said at the beginning of the conversation. To me, it's about the people. Like, it doesn't really matter. Yes, it does matter. I'm being a bit flippant. The tools and the technologies will come and go, but it's actually the people that you really need to focus on in order to create any kind of transformation within the business. And that's something I've been doing very recently. We're in the process of rolling out a new way of working. I probably won't surprise people it's in relation to AI, but the focus for me has been on that change management piece, because if we don't get that right, then we've invested a considerable amount of money in something that just won't work because people won't adopt it and it won't be used and we won't get the true value from it. So for me, it really is about the people.
Mm-hmm. I think you're so right, because farmers often rushes into investing in tools, but they forget about people's mindset and bring them on board, because you can give the most sophisticated tool to someone. If somebody's not ready to use it, it's just going to sit there and unused. And it probably maybe a good time for me to ask you what Alicia Finoglio asked. She said she's keen to hear from you whether your experience has been with AI use cases. What's the top one that is naturally being adopted by marketeers? And what's the top case which offers significant impact but is yet met with significant resistance by people, scale, or feasibility?
It's a great question, and not surprising that's come from her. I think there's a couple of things that we're doing at the moment in relation to driving customer value, and I know that's probably another phrase that's banded around a lot, but we are using AI in multiple different settings. So one of them, which you've probably heard about before, is it recommends content that the representative should be showing to the healthcare professional. Mm-hmm. I feel that the adoption rate in that was not fantastic when it was rolled out initially. So there was some initial stumbling blocks. But again, when we look back at that and trying to take the learnings from it, comes back to a couple of things. One of them is that people have to see the value in it. Like, you've got to give them the bigger picture. You've got to make sure that they understand what the true value is. And in addition to that, you have to make sure that all of the stakeholders are being taken on the same journey and are being onboarded. So, like, the capability builds, the communication plans are extremely important as well, just to make sure that that everybody's been taken on that same journey. So I would say that we're learning. I think, like many organizations out there, the speed at which these things are moving is so rapid. Sometimes it's difficult to keep up. So I'd say that in relation to customer engagement. I'm pleased to say that we are seeing a lot more progress in that area as well.
It's interesting you say that, Graham, because marketeers are producing more content than ever before since COVID. But Viva Pulse report shows that 75% of content created by marketeers never see the light of the day. On an average, 3.9 pages of the detail aid is used. And I still, when I talk to marketeers, when I work with our clients, they've got 40-page detail aids. And even you kind of think that's not realistic in a conversation to use it. You kind of focus on that to make it succinct and relevant to the HCP's needs, rather than just going like, here's another fact, another fact, another fact.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. Even here for AstraZeneca, we've got 20 new medicines to launch over the course of the next few years. Mm-hmm. And a huge part of that, of course, is going to be how do we really get it right in terms of engaging with our customer base, from a launch perspective. But the challenges that we see in the marketplace is that, as an example, we know that healthcare professionals are already drowning in information. So they receive, there's data that we use from McKinsey. They get over 300 communications from pharma industry per month. So already, it's like, how do you cut through that noise? How do you make yourself stand out and heard? It's about share of voice, yes, but more importantly, how do we get the share of mind? And that's what we're concerned about. And then the other stat that I was talking about earlier was around the explosion in AI. But what I found really interesting in that space is that Accenture did a study across the EU5 markets. Mm-hmm. I think it was earlier this year. There was 150 physicians were in that study, and they asked the physicians about the use of AI. Physicians all of the healthcare professionals expect us as an industry now to be using AI to engage with them because they get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're part of this, we're all living in the same world, and the world is rapidly moving in that direction. And so some of the stats that came back from that study was that 4 out of 5 healthcare professionals are actually more willing to share their data with us now because they want to receive personalized information and personalized messages. And 1 in 10 of them were prepared to share all of their information so that they could be ultra personalized. So,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using it themselves, right? So I think, yeah, they're already doing it. I think it was like 40 to 60% of healthcare professionals said that they would be using AI to inform their prescribing decisions within the next 10 years. And I always argue with that because I think it's happening a lot quicker than 10 years. I know they're doing it now with GPT.
My son's a doctor in Glasgow, and I've been talking to him, and he's been using AI for the last 2 years, and he's not a newly qualified doctor. He's been practicing for 7 years now. So the new generation of HCPs are not have any fears about IT or AI.
Yeah.
Expected is their norm, and the volume of information hitting them is so huge they can't cope with it if they didn't use technology to stream it. So no, definitely. But I think the personalization, there's so many opportunities for personalization, but I still find, Graham, a lot of the communication is still brand led. I was talking to one of our team about an account. When you've got specific information about the account, we can personalize that communication at the practice level, tell them something that addresses their need, that the brand is part of that journey. But I don't see that happening at scale in pharma. Very rarely I see that. Still, it's like, this is our product, these are the features, rather than saying, this is how it's helping you with your pathway, your patient process, saves you time, money, resources. It's still very much product-led. Have you managed to use AI to change the narrative from the product-led conversation to a more focused around addressing their problem, the HCP's problem or the patient's problem?
It's a really interesting area, actually. I was in a meeting discussing this point just the other week, and for us, this comes from at a local level. There'll be elements of AI that are being brought in to deliver those types of messages, whether it's in the content creation, the content process stream. But the reality is that actually for us, where I sit in AstraZeneca for BBU, it's been a journey, and we know now, because there's a lot more data that's being surfaced to us, that actually, I've just talked about AI in general, but there is a real movement around building trust, understanding the needs, and that what we're being told by the physicians is that they do want that less, if I dare to say, less sort of promotional context around the brand setting. And I think it's a two-way street, right? Because we can do that. We can build trust, because ultimately we're trying to serve somebody's needs and the needs of the patient. And one of the interesting things that we integrated, especially for us in the biopharmaceuticals business unit, over the course of the past year, was when you talk about taking it away from that brand label, there's been a huge amount of work by the teams that go in to initiatives that we call under the umbrella term of transform care. And one of the things that we've integrated into strategic planning, as an example, is disease area strategy. So before we even get down to a brand level, as I said before, we've got a huge pipeline coming. We really need to think about how we organize ourselves at a disease level, and how do we approach that, putting the customer at the center. So it's around prioritization, the transform care initiatives, supporting patient identification, patient diagnosis. Could be many different things. But those sort of large scale tactics and initiatives that you would see, and to your point, that's where we're going to see the sort of messaging at a higher level, perhaps at a disease state, rather than being on a brand.
Yeah, that's really good that you're doing that. But I think, Graham, the field team needs to shift their mindset as well, because traditionally they've just gone in and talk about the product. And I'm not saying just stop talking about the product, but just I think the sales team need to think about what is the problem we're trying to solve for the HCPs, and how can the brand help solve that and put it in that context. Because that makes the message so much more meaningful to HCPs, whether they're pharmacists, medicine management, secondary care consultant, or GPs. Tweak the message to make sure what we're saying to them is a solution for their problem, rather than just broadcasting messages and just aiming for share of voice. Because I've seen the impact is phenomenal. Engagement is within 7 seconds when you talk about their issues that your product could solve. It's just changing the narrative slightly makes a big difference. But let me go back, because you've had a lot of experience on using technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, and AI. But you said at the heart of it is still about people. Have you got a story to share where technology genuinely helped your team connect better with HCPs or patients?
There's a couple of examples actually I can tell you about. So I'm going to take a step back, probably about, I want to say 6 or 7 years, and this would have been my first, interaction or exploration into AI. At the time I was working on Brilinta, I was in the global marketing team, and what we realized is the insight was that when somebody has a heart attack and they're coming out of the hospital, they have this sense of being overwhelmed. Like there's a lot happening at that moment in their life, and they feel overwhelmed. They're actually not able to take in a whole lot of information, or at least not retain it for sure. And so when they're discharged, the other insight that we had is that how critically important the caregiver becomes in that recovery journey. So it's not just about the patient, actually it could be the husband or the wife or the daughter or the son that really is beside them every step of the way in recovery. And so what we wanted to do is actually design a patient education program that was going to deliver the right content at the right time on the right channel after the point of discharge. So this was along the recovery journey for the patient. And what we ended up doing, we did pilot it in the US, and we developed at the time, it was an app-based platform. But that app-based platform, once the patient had been signed up, actually used multiple channels, whether it was SMS, it could even be linked up to multiple other channels. And so the patient could engage with it as they pleased. And it was built around an AI model that could then learn their preferences as they started to learn along the journey. What I really liked about it, though, is that we actually just didn't give this to the patient. We actually gave it to their primary caregiver as well. And so the two platforms could interact and essentially talk to each other. So if the patient hadn't checked in, or they hadn't, read an article that had been pushed to them, or whatever it might be, the other stream could then pick that up and ask the caregiver to then check on them to make sure, has your husband seen this piece of information? And so you can see how those things would work in parallel, and that was all done through AI. So it was a really interesting project, and I really enjoyed working on that.
That's a great example, Graham, because I'm just thinking, like, somebody's had a heart attack, they're really scared, they almost kind of got that close to dying and they didn't, the carers are really concerned. It wasn't, your focus around was helping them on that journey of recovery, and is a beautiful example of using AI and apps to help somebody navigate their way back to health. So thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful. And I can see how the primary care physicians and the patients and the carers would see value in what you provided, which goes beyond the brand. That's brilliant.
Yeah, the exciting thing about that, actually, on reflection, was that it didn't run long enough, but actually, as the model progressed, the more exciting part of it is it could actually start to determine if there was disease progression due to surveys that were being pushed to the patients, the caregivers, and interactions that were happening across all of the multiple channels. So that if we'd continued along that, it would have been really interesting to see where that netted out.
Yeah, definitely. I encourage our listeners to pop in the questions in the chat, because as I said, it'd be really good to have your input. And I've got a question here from Christina. She says, how do you ensure the information is not fake news from AI? Do you see any governance or compliance challenges on this path?
Chris is making me work for my money.
Christina, keep bringing it on.
Fake news sounds like something that you would hear on the TV, right? Actually, the thing that I think the thing that we need to be conscious of, and this is like the interplay now between what we're doing with AI in multiple different scenarios, as you can probably imagine, with AstraZeneca being quite a large company, there are, I want to say, literally hundreds of initiatives ongoing at the moment, exploring potential use cases for AI. But I think the main one that we have, rather than it being fake news, unless, Chris, you mean people creating fake news about AstraZeneca, I'm not sure, but that would be a different story, not my department. But I think one of the things that we have to remain conscious of when it comes to AI are hallucinations. So we always have to have that human element in there. And so, in terms of any project that we have, and part of the governance process would be that we do look out for that.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And maybe Christina can clarify that, but thank you for that. We've got a question here. I think maybe this question is more for me than you, Graham. It is a LinkedIn user. I don't know who it is, the way it feeds through this platform. It says, the field team barely feel confident to speak about the product in some cases. I don't know why. How do we get them to be confident to speak about those more nuanced topics? Graham, do you have any comments on it at all, or do you want me to answer it?
You go first and I'll add if there's anything.
I don't see why they wouldn't feel confident to speak about the product. The only reason I can see a field team wouldn't feel confident to talk about a product if they didn't know their stuff. And I often think as a salesperson, you need to know your story, you need to know your numbers to be able to talk confidently. So whatever question they ask you, you can talk at the same level as a consultant or a GP or whoever you're talking to. But I think it goes back to what Graham said earlier on, is about having that psychological safety. If you create a psychological safe environment for the field team to think they own the product, but they understand the customer, then they would have that. And I think you need to create that, skill, but also the environment for them to develop those muscles. I give you specific examples. I had a conversation recently with the head of medicine management in one of the ICBs in England, and the products was on the formulary, and I was asking them, what's their plan? They were saying, we put it on Optimize RX, but we don't have capacity to drive performance of this brand. And I'm saying, so what needs to happen? And we had a very adult-to-adult conversation, because I'm trying to help them achieve the efficiency saving. This is an opportunity, but they don't have capacity to do it. And she came with specific advice around what we need from secondary care, what we need from primary care, and we kind of like put a plan together to address it. But this is not about me trying to communicate the product to them. They've already decided they're going to use it, but it's about working the system together, how they can, free up resources or utilize different resources to be able to achieve it. So I think I can't see any reason why field team wouldn't have the opportunity to have those conversations. Maybe they feel fearful that they're not allowed to have those conversations. And it just comes with education and, building those muscles. What do you think, Graham?
I would agree with you. I don't really see, if you think back to the day when we used to be in primary care and having to sell 5 products, I admit that might have been a bit of a stretch. I remember those days, but I agree. I think for me, it comes back to people. It's about engaging in people in the right way and making sure that they feel supported, and they have the right training and capabilities in place.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing I find is so powerful is when sales and marketing work so closely together. Because I had this conversation with somebody on Friday last week. There were pertinent piece of information this head of medicine management shared with me that I thought, you know what, this gives me a window into their world. What are their priorities, and what are the language they're using to define, do I go for project A or project B? And I immediately shared it with the team, but also shared it with the marketing team. So the marketing, we were having a conversation about it earlier on today. The marketing were saying, actually, we can use this piece of information that resonates with their language. So I think the more we get rid of these internal silos and have more fluid way of sharing the insights from the field so the marketeers can come up with cunning plans for it, the better we can organize ourselves internally to meet their need. Would you agree?
Yeah, I remember someone telling me that exact point when I first started in marketing, actually, and it was about the connection between marketing and sales, and you find and I think more so in the past and historically, like marketing, I would say are guilty a little bit of just doing things and then throwing them over the wall and then moving on to the next thing, and it just takes that bit of extra care to make sure that that you've got complete alignment between marketing and sales, especially from especially from a strategic perspective, and importantly, of course, for messaging. Yeah, I've learned the hard way a couple of times, actually.
Yeah, it's so funny.
On my journey.
Yeah, recently I was working with a client and they had this really, really complex budget impact model. And I kind of sometimes things like, if I want to eat a sandwich, I eat it like this, right? But it was equivalent of trying to eat the sandwich like that. And I said to them, have you used this in the field? They said, oh yeah, we have. I said, what's been the feedback from HCPs? They said, we don't know. I said, well, did you not ask? They said, no, we thought it's okay. Just because I think if you don't hear anything, it's probably not okay, because either they're not using it or they just use it once and they thought, you know what, HCP's eyes are rolling, let's not bother again. We've got another comment here from Christina. Thank you. She's kind of going back to what you said earlier on. She said, not AZ-based, lol, more about social media interfering on some messages that are not company-based but can be convincing and maybe add doubt in a patient's mind. Thanks for Christina for being so active and sharing your thoughts. I don't know whether you want to add any more comments to that, Graham.
No, and that actually is something that I've seen. I know that our internal governance process is quite diligent when it comes to aspects of that, especially in the public domain. And I know because they've interacted with me in the past, not because I was doing anything untoward, but somebody had actually commented on a post that I had written, and that was actually flagged to me by a team here at AstraZeneca, and so I know that they're quite diligent when it comes to fact checking as well.
Brilliant. I mean, fake news is everywhere. I think that's why I think pharma needs to be present in social media to kind of keep the balance with fact and science, not let patients be misinformed about things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You know, Graham, AI is a bit of a double-edged sword. Some people see it as a disruptor, others see it as a helper or enabler. What have you learned? What you talk about that human creativity, and in terms of your experience about AI, what have you learned in terms of unlocking the potential for better marketing outcomes?
As I said, I think a bit earlier, things are progressing so quickly at the moment. Sometimes it is really just difficult to keep up with the speed of progress. But we're doing a lot of things now to try and make sure that our teams have the right capabilities in place. And one of those was we've just rewritten the capabilities framework for marketing, and actually front and center of that framework is capabilities around data literacy, digital, and AI, because they're just absolutely critical now from a marketeer's perspective. And where I've seen things starting to increase in terms of use cases and how this helps us from a marketing perspective, I actually see now more around the strategic angle happening, whereas before it was quite operational. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we have AstraZeneca GPT, so we have a GPT which has got a firewall in it, so it's, you know, it's just everything that we have here within the organization, and they're comfortable for us to use that. So there are basic things like that we can use, and even just from that side of things, getting the basics right is still important when it comes to AI. And so we know that some people are doing things really well, some people not as consistently. And so part of my job at the moment is to try and drive that consistency with the capabilities in mind, and making sure, we talked about that a minute ago, people feel supported and in a safe space, and just get on and try things. So, for example, we've started to integrate that into strategic planning now. So this coming cycle, which I still can't believe we kicked it off this week. It's been an incredibly busy week here in Barcelona. We kicked off global strategic planning for 2027, believe it or not. And in part of that planning cycle, we've actually written a whole load of prompts for the teams to use when it comes to strategic planning. So even at the front end of the planning process, when it comes to insight generation and insight analysis, you know, there's prompts we've written so they can use GPT to write their SWOT analysis or their PESTLE analysis. So it's simple and effective things like that I really see unlocking value. And it's not saying that we weren't doing those things already or not doing them correctly, but you can do them so much quicker and so much more efficiently, and then therefore you can then focus on other things that are more important.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, because it encourages people to use it. You're giving them like the sandpit to play with it, and you're giving them some prompt to start off with. Do you find adoption is equal across the organization, or some people are much more comfortable with it and there's some resistance?
I think when it comes to anything like this, you've got your early adopters, just like we have in healthcare professionals as well. So there's the early adopters, and I think as part of that process, one of the other projects I'm working on, we're actually using that to our advantage. So all of the early adopters, we're getting them on film, talking about the successes they've had, you know, sharing those success stories more broadly with the organization, and, you know, trying to activate people through positive news.
Yeah, you know, I don't know whether I'll share this with you. I'm actually updating the Omni Advantage. I'm adding 2 chapters for the 2nd edition. One chapter is on AI, the other one's about social media. And in the chapter on AI, I actually refer to, you know, Daenerys in Game of Thrones, you know, the dragons. I just think, like, you need to harness the dragon. You need to ride the dragon. You can't be fearful of the fire. If you're on the dragon, the fire is facing the other way. And I kind of like feel like that analogy resonates with me, that with AI, we need to harness it and ride with it rather than fear it. And then when you start using it, sometimes I think if you're a creative person, you've got lots of ideas, it feels like having your ideas on speed, because you can structure and format your ideas into tangible projects so much faster than if you were trying to sit down and write them by hand or type them in or whatever. Yeah. So no, I love the way using it to inform the strategic direction rather than just a tactical, you know, copywriting. That's really cool. I'll be really curious to know how that impacts your output in 2027 when you actually come to implementing that strategy.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to reflect and look back for sure. We're already thinking about the next thing. Nadia on my team is even more passionate than I think she's the most passionate person I've met on AI. But she's been pushing us to think even further ahead, and of course with the advent of agentic AI, we're already thinking about how we can bring that into strategic planning.
Yeah. You know, Graham, I'm reflecting back on the presentation you did in Dubrovnik and the conversation we had now. Looking ahead, what do you think will separate good marketing leaders from truly great ones in the next 5 years?
I think if I remember that presentation, I'm probably going to refer back to that, because I do think it's about being agile and embracing embracing things as we move forward. If you remember what I said at the opening of that presentation, the challenges that we're currently facing, the external environment. In fact, our world is changing so rapidly at the moment in terms of this digital first mindset, new technologies, the advancement of AI. The challenge that we have is lack of time to keep up. And if from a marketeer's perspective, we're stuck in doing many different things apart from focusing on building our own capabilities and focusing on our own development. And I see that as a really big challenge for us. So I really believe that the leaders that can get that balance right are the ones that will shine when it comes to the end of the day. And I don't know if you remember, but I came up and presented my 3 E's, which I still firmly believe in, and any leader in the business needs to get this right, which was engage, embed, and evolve. So you've got to engage your people. If you don't engage your people and activate your audience, you won't get anywhere. And I've learned that on numerous occasions moving through my journey. You've then got to embed it, whether that's a capability, whether it's a brand, whether it's your project or initiatives. So don't just throw things out there and expect it to happen. You've got to make the effort to embed it. And then my final E was evolve. We've got to, as leaders, continue to look ahead and push the boundaries, both for yourself, but also for your team, and empower your teams.
I love that. Proper, true marketeer. 3 key messages in a memorable way. 3 E's from Graham Addison. Energize, engage, embed, and evolve. Love that. So, Graham, on a personal note, what keeps you curious and excited about the future of pharma marketing?
I've been very lucky because I've absolutely loved my journey, and I genuinely have been so engaged and as we've moved through the process of it, and I've been kept excited because I truly believe that anything is possible. Like, I don't see any barriers or obstacles that we can't overcome if we work together, and I think that's what excites me the most. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time for marketing, because I do see us at this almost like this turning point. I really feel like this shift is coming, and I see marketing as a role and as a function changing as we move through the course of the next few years. Of course, leveraging new technologies is going to play a huge part of that. But as I said, before, for me, it comes down to the people and being with the people, and keeping that in mind, that anything's possible. That's what excites me about it and what keeps me coming back.
Maybe that's why you're successful, because you are anticipating good things to come, and they do come. Well, I learned something about you that I just want to share with you. And I think, again, that's another secret sauce, apart from the fact that you're not fearful of taking risk, is, traditionally we always thought sales managers in pharma, like, they focus on people. Marketeers, they focus on things. You're a marketeer who really care about the people. You keep talking about taking the people on that journey. And I think that's why you're able to implement projects with impact, because you're thinking about the people involved in this journey. You're not distracted by shiny stuff, and you're not distracted by things. You have the right balance between getting the strategy and things done, but taking the people and enabling your people to deliver that. So good on you for being so insightful. I think this key thing is often overlooked by so many marketeers. They don't care or think about the people on that journey. And I'm really proud of you for making that center for yourself and put your focus on it. You even said earlier on, it says your primary focus is your team and enabling them to achieve the outcome. That's brilliant. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
No, you go.
I shoot from the hip. I say what I think without any filter. So the compliment is genuinely due. I'm really proud of you. Graham, I'm just kind of curious, I often ask this when I chat to people on this series, is have you had the chance to dip in and look at the Omni Advantage? And if you have, do you have a favorite chapter or a concept that resonated with you?
I'm going to be completely honest, Mehrnaz, and you're going to kill me for doing this.
I won't kill you.
But it's on my bedside table, as I said to you. I think the last time we spoke, and every single time I go to lift it, something happens. So I promise I'll dip into that tonight.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I guess just to give you an overview, the reason I wrote the book, because I really think in pharma we can do better in terms of truly connecting with healthcare professionals. I used to be a healthcare professional. My son is a healthcare professional, and I feel we shouldn't waste their time. We should really understand what is it they're trying to achieve in terms of patient care, either saving lives or enhancing whatever life people have left. And I think sometimes in pharma, we're just like chucking things and hoping something would stick. And I think the book intention was to make us stop and think, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And how can our product or services help solve that problem? Graham, go on. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's been incredible having you here today. I'm sure everybody who's been listening really enjoyed hearing your insight. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge. I've certainly learned from you, and I got to know more about you as a leader. It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Graham. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who joined us today. Thank you for being part of this conversation, making comments, asking questions. And hopefully you got a lot of value from this conversation, and hopefully Graham inspired you. Maybe he's a person that you can look back saying, he triggered me to think in a different way. I said at the beginning of this chat that my purpose is to unleash the human potential to create a healthier world. And I hope this conversation with Graham inspired you to unleash your own potential. Because I believe at the end of the day, we all have the power to do something so much bigger than ourselves. And by breaking down the internal silos, focusing on the human connection and investing in our own growth, particularly for marketeers, because you're so overwhelmed. If you invest in your own growth, you can really unlock the potential to create a healthier world through the strategies and plans that we come up with. So thank you, everybody. Graham, do you have any lasting words that you want to share?
I don't really. I just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity. I really enjoyed catching up with you, and of course we'll stay in touch. And if anybody has anything, questions or that, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to answer any after this, of course, as well.
Brilliant. As Graham said, he's got 3 E's of engagement, embedding, and evolving. And Christina says that you need to patent the 3 E's. If not, she might steal them with great pride. And she wants to thank you for this session. She says you really can teach an old dog new tricks. So there you go, Graham. Good on you for that.
Thanks,
I'm
Chris.
just going to say, thank you to you, Graham, and all our speakers. And I'll see you in our next episode in December with Brian Schroer. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.